Everybody, we are back for Chapter 9 of Psych 101. Again, I'm so sorry that this is the way we have to conduct our learning from now on, but we might as well make the best of it. And I would highly recommend that you watch this video because it will briefly explain each chapter, and then you will be prepared for the exams. And the assignments are all open for you. The exams are open using the passcode unexpected. And other than that, you have a paper to write, and that's it. You can do all your work on your time as long as you finish by the end of the semester. So here's Chapter 9. The chapter is Motivation and Emotion, and I am going to go through that rather quickly, but hopefully it's very consistent with the skeleton notes as well as the PowerPoints. And I'm going to show you a couple of handouts too. So look, I have the skeleton notes here in front of me to make it more consistent. First of all, motivation. There's intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic is when people do things because they want to do it. It gives them a sense of pride, confidence, or accomplishment, whereas external motivation is when a person is hoping for some kind of reward or acknowledgement. So if you are in this Psych 101 class because you truly want to learn, well, that would be intrinsic. But if you are hoping to get an A or approval from someone or recognition, well, that would be extrinsic. Next topic, the drive reduction theory. If you look in your book and on the PowerPoints, this is a cycle or a circle. It all starts with equilibrium or homeostasis. This is a state of motivation where you really don't need anything or feel like anything would be necessary for your daily functioning. But then comes a biological need. You get hungry, thirsty, you have to go to the bathroom, you're tired and you need sleep. All of those are biological needs. That leads to a drive. The drive is the motivation. That leads to goal-directed behavior, where you are then motivated to actually do something about that need. And then finally, the need is satisfied. But you know what? That never lasts for long. It goes back to equilibrium again, and then it all starts over again. So you're super hungry, you get yourself something to eat because you were motivated to do it. You're no longer hungry, but now you need something to drink. Or now you need to go to the bathroom or to take a rest. It's an endless cycle as long as the person remains living. That's the way the drive reduction theory works, and that was written about in World War II, 1942 actually. Next thing you need to know, the Yerkes-Dodson law. They called it arousal, but people now think of that more in sexual terms. So we say the Yerkes-Dodson law of motivation. It's the same thing, regardless of what it's called. Anyway, these two researchers back in 1908, they did research on what motivates people, but how much motivation is necessary. And what they found was when a task is very difficult, you are naturally motivated. You don't need to gain a high sense of motivation or arousal. When a task is easy, you need to be more motivated and get yourself more pumped up and energetic. But the one for the exam, moderate equals moderate. So I like to think the exams in my class are moderately difficult, so therefore you better have a moderate level of motivation. That's what the Yerkes-Dodson law would say. So next thing, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It would not surprise me at all if you have heard about this already. This is kind of common in American society and in other classes as well. In the 1960s, Abraham Maslow said that you first need to meet the bottom levels of the pyramid before you slowly move up to the top of the pyramid. So, level 1, physiological needs. The need for food, the need for something to drink, for sleep, for air to breathe. If you get those biological or physiological needs met, you can move up one level of the pyramid to safety needs. Do you feel safe and secure? Do you feel protected? And if you do, you can move up one level to love and belongingness. If you have those needs met, well, then you must feel loved, cared about, valued, and that you have a place in society. The next level is esteem needs. Do you feel good about yourself? And do you feel like you are capable of accomplishing things? And if you do, you can move up to the highest level, and that is self-actualization, becoming the best person that you can be. Maslow believed that a person could reach the top of their own pyramid, and then you would be like a shining star at the top of that pyramid. If you've ever been to Las Vegas, think of the Luxor with that giant halogen light on the top. It's a pyramid, and there's a bright light at the top of it. And that could be you, and it could be me, if you reach the point of achieving self-actualization. Moving right along. Biologically, it's the hypothalamus that gives us motivation for biological needs. That's the part of the brain that tells us when to eat, when to stop eating, when to drink, when to stop drinking. It does a lot of important functions, and those are two of them. Next thing, we're going to talk about two aspects of dieting and weight maintenance and why it's so difficult. So first, the biological theory. That would say that we all have set points. Your brain is used to certain levels of calories, fats, sugars, carbohydrates, the list goes on and on. When those get a little bit out of whack, then you start to crave them. So therefore, this handout about dieting will tell you that the quicker you try to change those set points, the worse it is. The best way to do it is to do it slowly. Try to change your exercise slowly, change your intake of bad stuff, sugars and fats and carbs slowly, because the quicker we do it, the more the brain and the body react, and then you want even more of that than you did in the first place. So according to the set point theory, slow change is good change. The psychological reason why it's hard to lose weight and maintain one's weight is called internal versus external eating. I almost got that backwards. Internal versus external eating. If a person eats for internal reasons, he or she only eats when hungry, and then they stop eating when they're not hungry. External eaters eat for every other possible reason. You're bored, you're tired, you're upset. Those would be the reasons for eating. You see other people eat, you see a commercial on TV, you're offered free samples, all kinds of reasons. You might have guessed that people who are external eaters have more problems with their weight than internal eaters. If you want to practice being an internal eater, it would be interesting for one day to only eat when you're really hungry for food, and then keep it slow, stop eating when your brain tells you you're not so hungry anymore. That's a tricky thing to do because most of us eat for all of the wrong reasons. External eating. Moving right along. Eating disorders. I am imagining most of you have heard of anorexia and bulimia. They are very common in the media. You hear about them in other classes that you take in high school and college, but maybe you didn't know the specific details. Internal eaters are people who tend to maintain their weight and really think about what they're eating, but obviously that can go overboard. And when it becomes an eating disorder, if you take abnormal psych from me, we talk about maladaptive. You become obsessed with it. So, people with anorexia, they basically starve themselves, but that's not possible to do completely. Usually what people with anorexia do is a slow pattern of not eating enough to stay healthy and well. It's very common that they come from families where you're expected to be perfect, A+ student, popular, follow all the rules that your parents make for you. And when people feel like they can't do that, they often take a sense of control over what they are eating. So that would be anorexia. Not total starvation, but not eating enough to stay healthy and well. Bulimia is a little bit different. The pattern is binge and purge. You eat a tremendous amount of food that you know is bad for you. The whole pie, the whole cheesecake, the whole pizza, and then you feel a need to get rid of it. Well, I don't need to gross you out, but there's really only two ends of the body where you could get rid of your food. It doesn't come out of your ears. Instead, you either throw it up, make yourself throw up, or you use laxatives or diuretics to make yourself go to the bathroom. People with anorexia do get super thin, but people with bulimia do not. Because when you swallow food that's junk food, you absorb the fats and calories right away. Whereas throwing it up or going to the bathroom is an after effect. So people with bulimia would have bad teeth or digestive problems, certainly, but would not necessarily be thin. Now, the one thing these two eating disorders have in common, much more common in females than males. In fact, it's estimated about 95% of these two eating disorders are females. Also, the ages 12 to 21 is when they commonly occur. The third thing is much more common in Caucasian girls. Yeah, white girls I'm talking about, compared with other races and ethnicities. Probably because that's who most of the actresses and models are. Maybe it's more cultural values of being thin. Some of you that do not come from a traditional white family, you might be encouraged to eat more or to be more curvy in your appearance. But unfortunately for your average white folks, being skinny is what you are told if you're female. And then the third thing is, we do see it more in the middle class. We don't have records of people who are super rich as much because they go for private treatment. There's less records of that. And people who are really lacking money don't want to miss a meal or throw it up because they are grateful to have food. So we do see this more in young, white, middle class females. Last thing is emotions. And you will need the handout that's attached to this chapter under modules or to look at the PowerPoint. There are 3 theories of emotions. There are actually more. 3 that I want you to know about, and they are the Cannon-Bard theory, the James Lange theory, and the Lazarus theory. By the way, we're almost done with this video. First one, Cannon-Bard theory. Walter B. Cannon is the guy who discovered what the hypothalamus does, actually. He and his associate Bard came up with a theory of emotions that often your brain perceives an event after the event happens, and then all at once you react. It's also known as the all-at-once theory. So, you see a spider crawling across your papers, you are going to react to what your brain perceives. The event is the spider, and the perception of your brain is, oh, I'm scared of that, and all at once you have a physiological response, and you would likely move out of the way, and that would trigger your emotions all at the same time, probably fear. Obviously, if it was a ladybug, you wouldn't react the same way. Your brain would perceive it differently. The second theory is James Lange, and yes, that's William James from chapter 1, and what else would it be? Chapter 4, I think we went over him too. His theory of the endless stream of consciousness fits right along with this because it is what you are aware of. James said often emotions happen as an end result. So all of this happens after your brain perceives it, and then the final step is the emotion. So those of you who drive, think of yourself driving a car and you have to swerve to get out of the way because somebody cuts right in front of you. Don't you react first and then you feel the emotion? You're scared or angry as an end result? Well, that would explain the James Lang theory. And the final theory I want you to know, also the final part of this chapter, is the Lazarus theory. Lazarus is going to come up a lot, the same guy, Richard Lazarus, in the next chapter. Here's what he says. There's an external stimulus, again, all part of the same handout, but also it's on the PowerPoint. An external stimulus, that is followed by a cognitive appraisal. Your brain will tell you what it's worth, and then you experience the emotion. Your brain has to appraise it. So when we hear appraisal, we often think of money. Well, that's an example. Imagine finding a penny laying in the street. You would not have the same emotional reaction as if it was a $100 bill. But what about the example I just gave? A spider crawling across your papers. Your brain would appraise that situation, give a value to it, much differently than if it was, say, a ladybug. If a kitten is following you when you're walking through your neighborhood, would that be different than if it was a huge dog barking and growling at you? Probably, because your brain would appraise it differently. Cognitive is thinking, and appraisal is how much is that worth at any given moment. So we are at the end of this chapter. Remember, you can take these exams when you choose to do so using the passcode at home or wherever else you choose to do it. The password is unexpected. And just keep up with the assignments. Make sure you do your paper by the end and do the exams. You only get one chance to submit these things, so make sure you do it right in the first place. That's it for this chapter. Take care.